Welcome to Boxed and More, the podcast where shipping containers and modular structures become stunning homes, bold businesses, and big ideas. We're diving deep into the world of modular living, chatting with the trailblazers of the industry, architects, builders, entrepreneurs, and everyday dreamers making it happen or looking for advice. And here is your host, Lars Janowski.
Hello and welcome back to Boxed and More, the show where I talk to people doing unexpected things with steel boxes. I am Lars. Today I'm talking to Justin, inventor of Domino Clamps, where without welding or anything else you can attach things to shipping containers. Without further ado, I'd welcome Justin from Domino Clamps. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Lars. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very good. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having us. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Maybe just for the listeners, so we've had contact before because I've actually bought for our container conversions. I bought Domino Clamps off you, and I think initially I found you via a YouTube video, which you're quite active in, like we are. Yeah. And I saw you, attaching different things to containers. Look, why don't we just start off, just give a little bit of background on yourself, and we'll dig deeper into the whole Domino Clamps story, but for people who don't know you, to understand who you are.
Yeah, okay. Well, yes, my name's Justin. I'm the founder and managing director of Domino Clamps, which are a product that I came up with a few years ago. And what they do is they allow you to attach almost anything, as we say, to the outside of the shipping container. And they do so by using the kind of existing architecture of the shipping container and allow you to bolt things to a plate which attaches without damage to the corner of the container. So that's an idea that I came up with. I had a background in the events industry, which I'm sure we'll go into in a bit. But started out as a bit of a labor of love and a bit of a kind of experiment to see if we could get something like that working and get it working for my needs at least. And then later that evolved into something that was actually a commercially viable product. And then kind of, led us to where we are now, selling Domino Clamps to people like your good self and various others who need a solution for attaching things to containers without damaging them.
So take me back. Of course, I've done a bit of research, and there's this story that you were somewhere in the heat of Spain, standing in the middle of a container on a container roof. Take me back to that sort of situation, because this sounds like that was the trigger for the idea.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely the probably one of the most memorable moments that I can think of, where I specifically remember thinking my current solution is not good enough, or I'm not happy with it. Which is, yes, as the picture you quite painted already is, yes, standing on top of a shipping container in the blaring Spanish sun in the middle of summer, which is can be pretty unbearable at the best of times without standing on top of a giant metal radiator, which is effectively what those are in that heat.
Yeah.
Yes, as I say, I was working in events. We were working at an event which happened annually in Spain, in kind of near Zaragoza, very much in the most one of the driest, hottest parts of Spain, famously where they used to shoot spaghetti westerns back in the day. So because it has those kind of plateaus that kind of give that effect of being in the American Midwest. So increasingly the event was making use of more and more shipping containers for on and off-site storage. And so they would be around on site during the event, and it's very much a from nothing to nothing event. So we had the boxes around there for the duration of the event, and increasingly it made more and more sense to be attaching things to them. We preferred to work in the evenings a lot of the time because it was obviously a lot cooler, and that meant putting up floodlighting. And so one of the first things we needed to attach were scaffold poles, so that we could attach floodlighting to the top and give ourselves a bit of working light, both for safety and for practically just being able to move around and do things at night, or at least in lower light. And for that purpose at the time, I was just, for want of a better solution, we were hammering small lengths of scaffolding diagonally through a corner casting, diagonally through there.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Just about fits, is pretty far from ideal.
Yeah.
And very, very problematic. I mean, we to the point where occasionally we had to lift the container and then knock it out. And it was just a lot of work, and it was in the events world, you sometimes needs must, and you take shortcuts to try and make things work, and you do what you can to get the event going with a deadline. But yeah, I think that was the most vivid memory I have of thinking, knocking it out, just being exhausted, just wanting to finish and go, and thinking there must be a better solution for this. So fast forward a few months, it was winter time and a bit quieter in the events world. I thought, oh, you know what? I'll dig out. I'll find whatever that product is that does that. And I, started searching, as you would on Google, and searched until it slowly started dawning on me. And I remember getting quite excited in a way, thinking, because simultaneously to realizing that it wasn't there, thinking it should be there. I'm sure it should exist, and being very surprised that it didn't. So, that one thing led to another. The next year I came back with some very, very early prototype clamps, which at the time I think I called something but silly. What did I call them? It was something very English and silly, like doodahs or container knickknacks or something. I can't remember. We used those for a few years. They were quite clunky and had significant failings as far as I was concerned, but it was a good deal better than the solution we had previously.
Two things just three. When you Google stuff, specifically nowadays, I mean, that's how I found you. And I did, it was probably more of it wasn't a need per se. It was just, I was looking for, at that point, very similar to your Lightning, we attach signs, so banners on top of the container. And I thought, well, there's got to be something that, makes that a little bit easier rather than, I think the guys, in the past, we would have our own sort of pipes which would fit into the top of the corner casting, in conjunction with the twist locks. We did sort of weld twist locks onto the signs, so you could just swap it. But it looked a little bit clunky, not very designish, if that's a word. And then so then your YouTube came up, and it's a similar thing. You Google things and you go, oh, if this is not there, I might just, it's a metal piece, some sort of interface. I can imagine what you went through. How did you actually end up? You said you had weird names. Well, how did you come up then? What does the Domino come from?
How did Domino Clamp come from? I think I went through a bunch of names. I mean, frankly, I think coming up with the name was about the most fun part of the entire process.
Yeah. As always,
it was appealed to my creativity without being too much of a burden in terms of other areas.
Yes.
I came up with the name. I think originally we'd started talking about how it would be what we were wanting things to do is for containers to go together almost as simple as Lego bricks go together. And so I kind of had this idea in my head of Lego bricks kept coming together, which is kind of how we ended up with this kind of very early isometric, almost cartoony style graphics for containers going together. We wanted it to be like that. And so I guess I was thinking of, boxes and things that go together, and maybe that conjured up the idea of a domino going together as well. But it's a domino it's a word. There's a proper name for it. I can't remember quite what it is, but it's one of a very small handful of words in the English language which are phonetically pretty much the same in every single language across the world. So it had an added bonus of when anybody ever says the word domino, if you punch domino into Google Translate into any other language, it comes out as domino, with almost no exceptions.
Well, and then coincidentally, the game is we've got the 5 dots for 5 dots, 4 for 4.
Exactly. And then that really fell into place during the design process as well. When we ended up, we had 4 dots in the middle. When I was sketching them out, we had 4 dots on a rectangle indicating each of the bolt holes, one in the center for the central bolt, and I thought, well, all that needs is a line down the middle, and it starts to look like a domino as well. So.
Incredible. So maybe just for when I think it was 2015, you started with CNC machine pieces, the first prototypes. I think that's what it said on your website. How did you go about this? So you had a sketch, and then did you just first step was I need to attach poles, or did you already think further?
Yeah, we had back in those days we had. I just used a countersunk bolt through the middle for one type, which allowed us to attach half couplers on, scaffolding half couplers. And I had another variation that had plywood blocks pre-attached So
Right,
that was for screwing wood in two. So that ended up becoming one of the first starting points for the design constraints for the new model, which was that it was gonna you wouldn't need two. You wouldn't need two different versions for different solutions. I wanted one kind of core product, and then everything else added onto that. Yeah.
And what would you describe was the sort of the hardest single engineering problem to crack for the actual clamps?
I think it's hard to put down a single engineering problem as such. It was more a case of, as with any engineering design problem, it's often a case of you solve one problem. Often you can solve one problem, and the things that you've changed in order to make that problem have then moved the goalpost to another problem, which then make that more difficult or different somehow.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time it's trying to get several pieces of the jigsaw to match up simultaneously, whether that's, fulfilling the requirements for it to be as versatile as you want, while being manufacturable at scale, while also being, affordable, while also, being able to meet your strength requirements or any kind of regulatory requirements or anything like this. So it's difficult to say that there was a one particular issue. It was kind of a case of getting all of the jigsaw pieces to fit together simultaneously. Yeah, but I think but if I had to pick something out, it would probably be just settling on a very simple mechanical way of making it fail foolproof, basically. So that I wanted to make sure that there was absolutely no way that it could be done up wrong, or if it had been done up wrong, it would be immediately obvious. So there was so that there was no risk to us, and it was as foolproof as possible.
And starting with, once you've put them in the market, sold the first ones, I'm assuming you had ideas of what can be attached, but did you get any, I'm sure you got feedback from clients or customers who said like, well, I want to stick this on a container, things you hadn't considered before. Was there something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, although I had a small idea of what I could and would attach one day, I didn't necessarily know what order that would come in, or what was most commonly called for. And so, yeah, most of our accessories, to be honest, are quite customer focused. They're quite customer led. Our Starlink adapters, for instance, I first put those onto the accessory lists simply because a customer had asked to be able to do it, and I hadn't even heard of Starlink really be much beyond as it happens once seeing one of the chains of satellites in the sky, which is one of the side story, one of the eeriest things I think I've ever seen. It's quite strange if you've ever seen that chain of lights in the sky.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Very odd.
You go like, woof, this is, it's a weird feeling, like this very straight line.
Yeah.
You basically Google and then you get all these pictures and say, don't worry.
Elon's
train going up there, and
you know what it is. You know what it is rationally, but there's still a part of your brain saying, "Don't like that's not right."
That feels weird. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, absolutely. So this, I actually was in Spain where I don't remember where, but it was clear sky and these, I don't know, what is it, like 10, 12 dots, or
maybe
it's so clear and it's actually it is so moving. And you go like, that feel, who's this, right?
And fast, it's not moving fast as well, because obviously they're so much closer to us than satellites, so they appear to move a great deal faster.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said to you, we've one of our sort of purposes for buying Domino Clamps was attaching Starlink, dishes to contain one, and in this case, just one per container, obviously, just a pole, and to serve as data feed for just a cashier system for a container shop, right? So we built for a German company sort of a double object, which downstairs you had a 20-foot container with a normal sort of opening, and the indoors was kitted out with a shop design, all in nice and white wood, and there was 3 sales cash tills, right, digital cash tills, and the client requested complete fallback. So one was if they were to put up the containers in an area where they didn't have local area networks or cables coming out of some building, That was number one. And number two was SIM card routers, which again was a bit of a tricky one because if you put a SIM card router inside a container, you'll end up having no signal. So you had to take the antenna out. And number three was a Starlink.
Yeah.
And so that whatever happened, they could sell whatever they were selling out of the containers without those cache tilts, not having any signal, right?
Yeah.
And it was we put it on top of the shop container. There was another 20-foot on top with a staircase going back up, which was storage for all the things that we're selling downstairs. So we had to wire up the whole Starlink, the pole, and the actual dish to the second container.
Yeah.
And that's where we used your clamps.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is find yourself out at the event and relying on the event's network, and suddenly that fails, and none of your point of sale card machines work. So yes, Starlink does make a lot of sense. Although that said, being British and in the spirit of our beloved BBC, I should say that other low orbit satellite internet providers are available.
It's the same. We that's how I came across you. And have you had any sort of really sort of not even necessarily that you provide an adapter for it, but strange things you've heard people use Domino clamps for?
Yeah, goodness me. I mean, going further into space. Yeah, we've got a customer who sent us some images recently who they're not SETI, because I think SETI doesn't exist anymore, but they've got a listening station for some kind of comms. I haven't looked too much into it, but I did see it pop up the other day internally that they're listening for some kind of radio waves from outer space. We've got all sorts. I mean, the craziest ones. There's a great student-led project in Poland that they're kind of volunteers, students and volunteer enthusiasts developing rockets for space rockets, and they have, I believe, a cooling system for something or other which has perhaps just, let's say, compressed nitrogen at a guess, but I'm not entirely certain. Compressed CO2 or compressed nitrogen, and that's attached to the outside of the container. I mean, you name it. I mean, every time you think that you've probably seen the last application, something new pops up.
Yeah. And in terms of your development now, so maybe for the listeners, so you have the base Domino clamp, which is the metal plate with the, what is it, the M12 threads for?
M12s, that's correct, yeah.
M12. And then you have the center locking, which is sort of a oval cone. If you just describe it, just the first step, and then we'll go from there, how the attachments
work. I mean, I've got one I can show you as well.
Please, better,
So this is one of the Domino clamps. This is the front face here. Round the back, this is our locking mechanism. And as you say, you've got 4 12s on the front face, and that's what you would eventually bolt whatever it is that you need to the front. As you say, we've got a bunch of accessories for that, and things like timber and the timber and steel tube, and then kits for expanding that out to Starlink or lighting or whatever. And then, this is the central locking pin. It's an M16, and you simply do that up, tighten it up with an hex key or an Allen key in the middle there. And then that you insert this into the corner casting. When you tighten it up, that locks into place. And then, that's then firmly attached to the ISO corner of the container. And then, undo it, and it's the same thing happens in reverse, or a similar thing happens in reverse. It rotates back to vertical, and out it pops. So and as I say, that was this was a long way away from that first prototype that I made all those years ago for 2015 or something in our event. But this is kind of what we ended up with.
So for everyone listening to this, it literally takes 15-20 seconds to put this thing on. Personally, you put your Allen key in, and then as long as you can turn it, it tightens up, and that's it from that point onwards. So then that was the first bit, and you could obviously say anyone then can think of their own solutions, because you got the solution here is that you've got the 4 M12s, and you can attach anything. But then I guess you had this. There's the accessories, staying with Apple and Musk, and sort of okay, that's the base one. But now, Starlink, pole clamps, if you've got lightning ones, you have wooden blocks as well, I saw, for cladding, I think. Tell me more about that cladding part.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can bolt you can bolt wood directly to the front, structural wood, structural timber straight to the front of the domino clamp. But it does require obviously making sure that, especially if it's going to reach 2 domino clamps simultaneously, you obviously need to make sure that your holes are absolutely, on point for that.
On point, yeah.
Again, coming from an events background, I knew how important it was sometimes just to get things up quickly and easily. It doesn't necessarily need to be to be there for weeks on end.
Yeah.
Or years indeed. So yes, we do have the adapters, which are 30 millimeter thick plywood, and then you can bolt that on, and then you can just offer up your wood, called offering up here in the UK, and you just pop it up. You just need to get one, and then you can just pop a couple of screws in, maybe more than a couple, but and then and away you go. You've kind of got the benefits of wood to wood attachment, but without having to line up all of those holes millimeter perfect to make sure that they're going to, you're going to be able to put a bolt through on one end, and then 6 meters further down the line, it's going to line up perfectly for your timber and the domino clamp on the other. Yeah,
I understand.
So yeah, that was a kind of quick and easy solution. And then there's been other brackets as well, which kind of meet somewhere in the middle. You've got the sturdiness of bolting something directly to a piece of steel, but without having to get those holes lined up perfectly. So yeah, there's been all sorts. It's to the point where now it's not always immediately obvious, even for any given application, which of the accessories is best. But
sure.
Yeah, we've tried to cover several bases.
And I believe when you started, when you had your first, you went with your sort of initial delivery, you went straight into COVID. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. That was quite a bit of timing actually. Production got delayed quite a bit. Going back to the difficulties we experienced, I'll admit that was one of them, is just getting all of those initial processes dialed in and working and working smoothly. Things just inevitably take longer than you expect. But yes, as you say, when we finally got our first batch of domino clamps, I think they arrived almost exactly 2 years after we started the company.
Yeah.
And began in earnest developing the product for the commercial market. We got our first domino clamps arrive on a pallet, must have been around the 20th of February, something like that, 2020. And there was already by that point whispers on the wind. We could obviously see that, this thing, COVID, was on the rise. We didn't know how serious it would be. But then I think the UK, for instance, I think we went into lockdown maybe 3 weeks later, something like that. So that was obviously a bit of a blow. I still had an events company that I was trying to keep afloat and running at the time. So yeah, it was quite a lot of uncertainty around that time, as for everybody. Yeah. But yeah, really not, in some ways, not ideal to be starting a venture that you've waited 2 years to get to this point.
Straight into the events industry.
Yeah, but it did have it came with its silver linings. It wasn't all bad at all, which is more than we said for a great deal of people at that time. So I count myself as one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a bummer if you straight into COVID, where we had the same, just complete production came to a standstill. There's nobody's running events, not to mention anything with containers or storing anything. I mean, there are a couple at that time. We did supply containers to help with vaccinations and all these types of things, keeping people separate and so on. But that was just one small project. But the rest of it, obviously, the event industry said, no, hang on, nothing's happening, right?
Yeah.
And then the first, how did you market? I mean, forget COVID for a moment, but how did you start marketing? Was it through your events connections and telling people about it, or? Yeah,
well, I mean, I certainly did do that. I mean, the problem that I ended up facing was that, inevitably, I was calling people who were seeing it, and they obviously had much bigger problems to deal with at the moment, and without finding themselves distracted by a product which, as useful as it might be, didn't have any events to be at the time.
Yeah, of course.
So it wasn't. It didn't end up that avenue didn't end up being particularly fruitful. So yeah, it really ended up meaning that I had little choice but to focus on just trying to make just trying to explain it to people online, trying to make, the early video content, the early, blog content, the early online marketing content, and just try and get it seen by as many people as possible there. But with the silver lining that I mentioned earlier, I guess, was that, by the time it reached kind of mid-April or something, I knew I didn't have any time. I wasn't being distracted by Events World anymore.
Yeah,
it was simply damage limitation for company number one, and focusing on Domino Clamps.
Of course.
At the same time.
And are you still running the events part, or is now full focus on Domino's?
No. I closed that company shortly after COVID. By the time it didn't really seem. It seemed like it had kind of run its course anyway, and it was a new chapter and a new beginning, and that was where I was going to focus my energies.
Well, then you're on a winning streak with this, yes, because it's a good product. Have you had any issues with people trying to copy it?
Copy, not exactly. No, I mean, people have done their own thing. I mean, even having said that there was, I couldn't find anything on the market. I mean, I couldn't, not that fell within that, price range or anything that any reasonable person was likely to be able to afford. But yeah, I mean, we've got various bits of IP protection in place, and people, for the most part, the more likely thing is that people kind of, knock up something in their own workshop as a
conduit.
But that was already happening. We were obviously aware that specifically what we were trying to do is, a lot of people were kind of making a solution, perhaps not dissimilar from my early prototypes in a workshop or in their mate's workshop or whatever, or indeed just, biting the bullet and just welding something to the container and drilling into their container, depending on, and for some people that's always going to be possible. And some people are going to have the time and the skills necessary and the equipment necessary to just be able to knock up something similar.
Yeah, of course.
So that's not really an issue, but it's, a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people's individual situations mean they can't do that. And a lot of people prefer to have something with a manufacturer's mark and a guarantee and a stamp of approval and a mark of some confidence in how strong it's going to be, how reliable it's going to be, and someone to take responsibility for it.
Talk to some things. No, I think you have sort of two. Well, there's a lot of target clients, but if you divide the types of myself and what we do, where we have people in the workshop who could weld something on the mechanic, and then you have the whole event industry of people who build things, have to do something very quickly, that nobody's got a welding machine, that they just want to rely on something, and they just put it as part of their toolbox, right? So bring me 4 domino clamps, just stick this thing on.
Yeah.
So you make a point. It's all UK manufactured, isn't it? Produced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all made here in the UK. That was definitely, it wasn't something that we always saw as inevitable, but we were very fortunate to come across a UK manufacturer that kind of really fell for the kind of story behind it, and what we were trying to do. And yeah, I went to have a meeting. They actually originally turned us down to be a manufacturer. And I just kind of out of the blue, I was in the area. They're based in the West Midlands in the UK. And I dropped in to see the managing director one afternoon and said, hey, look, do you mind if I just have a chat about it? Because I'd be interested to get your feedback and chat about, why you couldn't take it on, but also if you've, have a look at your processes and this, that, the other. So I dropped in and he said, yeah, pop around for 20 minutes and have a chat. And I left about 3.5 hours later with an agreement that he would actually make them after all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't always a foregone conclusion that we would make them in the UK. We were looking elsewhere, but it didn't. It's not something that for one second I've looked back on and with any regret whatsoever. It turned out to be beneficial in several ways, most notably for exporting as a result of Brexit, because they're made in the UK. With all other pros and cons or topics of Brexit put aside, it means that UK products are 0 rated for exporting to Europe. So
Mm-hmm.
So it put no additional burden on EU customers. And then more recently, for better or worse, we got spared. The UK was spared the 50% tariff
Yes.
that Trump so kindly gave to the rest of Europe.
Yeah, very kind.
While we dodged a bullet, but yeah, with a mere 25% on top of the 10% on top of what was nearly there. But yeah, and I mean, aside from that, I think UK. I like to think UK manufacturing still comes with a level of credibility to it. You know, as I think you mentioned previously, but when we were chatting before, you said something over before that, you know, the company that makes them, they make parts for, you know, some of the titans of British engineering exports, you know, like Land Rover, Range Rover. They even make parts, as I think you mentioned, for replacement. They're the only people that make certain replacement parts for some classic old British wartime planes that still fly. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, it's certainly had its ups and downs, but more downs, frankly. But you know, the British manufacturer has taken a few hard knocks over the last few decades. But yeah, I mean, I know for my money, I'd obviously rather invest in a British made, European made, you know, American made product in most cases than I would for something where I know that, you know, if it goes wrong, you can't even send the thing back or have someone to speak to about it. You know, I came from the events industry, as I say, and all of the major, you know, in terms of engineering, when you go to look at a like events trust or something like that.
Yeah.
No self-respecting events company buys events trust from any brand that isn't manufacturing in Europe. Nobody does it.
No, of course.
Absolutely nobody does it.
Look, there's so many things that can go wrong, and I'm personally I'm a sucker for quality, right? And of course, you hear German engineering, British engineering. Yeah, I fully understand. I read somewhere that they when I first saw them, when they arrived in our workshop, I thought, whoa, this is pretty. You know, I wouldn't say over-engineered. Well, it springs to mind. You look, they are drop forged, right? They are. Tell us what you can attach. What 2 tons?
2 tons. Two tons. Yeah, 2 tons in vertical shear, and I mean that. Frankly, you know, that ultimately it needs to be. There was a point at which we had to make a decision on what that would be and what the safety factor of that would be. You know, that's actually a 5-to-1 safety factor on those. It's as high as it ever really needs to be. It's, you know, that's significantly before any permanent, you know, plastic deformation of the steel. And yes, I think that's not the first time I've heard something like that. One of the first things that people say when they pick one up is you get handed in it and they'll do that classic thing of reaching out and they go, oh god, and then
absolutely.
Really, like it's a lot heavier than they anticipated in their mind. Yeah. Yes. And yes, I mean, yes, I'll happily take over-engineered as a compliment, not a criticism. But yeah, it was very positive. Yeah. They're very solid. And yes, drop forged. So that, for those that don't know, listening, that's the very well time honored technique of getting the steel very, very hot and hammering it with a massive hammer with a die with the die on the end, and that's done in 2 or 3 stages depending on the complexity of the product. Roughing it out into its basic shape and then honing it, with 1 or more sets of dies, and that's done on I think the large part of ours is done on a 10-ton hammer. So it's a very hot, very loud, very noisy process. We've just had a heat wave here in the UK, and we were due to have a new batch of large products get made, and it all got delayed for a week because it simply wasn't safe for people to be working in that heat, in that environment.
Sure. Yeah,
so they it gets to a point where they literally they can't do it anymore because you've got this wide open blast furnace heating up the billets of steel, which are big long rods of steel. And we've got some videos. We've got some great videos of this that we shot early on that you should be able to find on our Instagram page. It's very satisfying watching it happen. It's very big, loud, noisy process with red hot steel. It's quite satisfying to watch.
I love I love watching it, and I also love smelling it when you go into production.
Yeah.
I mean, it's noisy, obviously, as well. It reminds me a little bit of Peaky Blinders.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, Peaky Blinders isn't shot far from where these are made. So yeah,
Seriously, all right,
yeah,
okay,
it's
cool.
not. I mean, it's not. It's all set and shot. I admit, I don't actually know where they
Mm,
where they shot it all, but
mm,
it's set not really not very far from
yeah.
not far from where these are made.
Cool. No, how where do you where in the world do you send them through? And we've ordered from Germany, obviously UK. And what's the sort of the furthest away we've sent them?
Well, I mean, what's the direct equivalent side of the world to the UK? I'm just somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, all over. All over the world. Yeah, yeah. We've sent them all over. Yeah, I think a few remote. I think once or twice we've sent them to a place that I didn't even know existed. I had to look it up on a map, just like
Yeah.
some old colonial island or something that I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I really like it. When I found, as I said, I saw your YouTube video 2 years ago or something when we did the first order. And as I said earlier, we now buy through a wholesaler. But you said you mostly direct sales, right? People order via website and
Yeah, that's right. Most people come directly to us. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I think that it gives us the most option to be able to. A lot of people we offer a lot of technical advice and assistance and guidance throughout the purchasing process, and even some to where if it falls within my or our knowledge base and abilities and our ability to offer advice practically and legally, then we try and do our best to help people through their design and purchase choice process as well. So I think that's really where our strength lies as a supplier is having that experience and that background knowledge on top of the products being actually in stock.
Do you get requests not just for the actual clamps, but to find a solution for a new attachment where someone says we were thinking of doing X, Y, Z, and can you help us?
Yeah, I mean, you get the odd person that's got themselves a container, or with the best of intentions, thought they were buying themselves an ISO shipping container, which isn't an ISO shipping container. That's probably the most common scenario, and it's quite kind of understandably, especially due to the fact that some manufacturers mimic those same hole shapes, I guess, in order to interface with other products. They've bought a container which they thought was ISO standardized and isn't.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably the most common thing is saying, does this fit? Will it fit? Can it fit? Is it still rated? But yeah, I mean, we've had all sorts of requests to, can you do one for the inside of the container? Yeah. Can you do it for a non-standardized container? Yeah. I mean, as I say, where possible, as I say, a lot of our products have been quite customer led. But yeah, I think there's limits to what ideally we want to be doing as a company, what solutions we can and want to solve, and which we prefer to focus our energies on.
Sure. When you think about a 40-footer, I don't even know, you may already have this in your portfolio, but because these go into the corner castings, if you had to find a middle part, along the top on the top between the two corner castings, left and right, you've got these 12 meters distance from one to the other on a 40-footer. Is there something you've ever thought of putting another one in the middle? Obviously not with a corner casting, but you've got to fix it in a different way.
Yeah. So the only other product that we have that doesn't bolt directly to a domino clamp is our roof brackets. And those attach to the top side rail, which runs along the top of the shipping container. Although there's two different types of top side rails, so these are applied to these fixed onto where you've got a box section side rail.
Yeah.
So that's my little evergreen container here. That's the rail which runs across the top of there. But they're not rated. They don't stick to what I think were the founding principles of domino clamps, which are that they are super strong by themselves and completely fail-safe. They work very, very well as a supporting element for something along the middle when attached with two domino clamps. We don't, because all they're really doing is gripping on rather like a vice or a G clamp onto the side. They're not foolproof in and of themselves. So they're a supporting element. really. And there really isn't anything, there really is no architecture in shipping containers really that offers you that same security. So
No, I understand. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, it's we've physically added another sort of half-cut corner casting to the middle part of the roof section to put 20 foots on top for a different container structure, which turned into an event structure for a client. And sometimes we do get, which has nothing to do really with the clamps, but just in terms of why you would have some supporting bits and pieces along the roof line. I've just recently had someone asking, or we do get this a lot of times for, branding purpose, to put containers diagonally on top of each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or, like 30 degrees or 45 degrees. And you'd have to put some sort of adapter in between so that they, it's all windproof and all these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Talking of event industry, because that's a bit where you come from, how do you see things happening at the moment in general? Yeah, very interesting closure in the whole. How's the UK doing?
I must admit that my finger hasn't been so much on the pulse recently in terms of the events world. I've seen definitely that there have been problems with keeping a lot of permanent venues open. Certainly in London, we've seen various pressures laid on some existing events and nighttime spaces that weren't there previously. Events, I think, have definitely been a bit tumultuous. Outdoor events, weekend events, festivals, that type of thing. I think,
yeah, sure.
from what I've seen, has been, ticket sales have been, a bit tumultuous, up and down, and a few big names disappearing from the annual roster. But yeah, I must admit that it's not something that I would claim to have much of a grasp on how well the industry is doing as a whole. And yeah, there's lots of reasons for that. But I've been to a couple of really great events this year. This the stuff's still going ahead. I think Glastonbury's having a fallow year this year, but that'll be back again next time round, and we'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, COVID obviously caused a big knock, and a lot of people didn't or couldn't wait for things to come back and retrained and moved into other things. So absolutely. I know that the industry certainly lost a lot of great, hardworking, creative individuals, and as a result of that, I don't know that Brexit was a great help to a large extent either. From what I saw, I think people couldn't, there was such a long period where people just didn't know what was going on and when things would be back. So yeah, it was a bit of a double whammy of uncertainty during that period for people. And what I saw of the events industry was already, I think in some cases, an awful lot of a large industry propped up on, I hate to say it, but a lot of the goodwill and hard work of a lot of people pulling out all the stops to make things happen last minute. Absolutely. Because it's what they loved and what they wanted to be part of. And I don't think it needed much of a spark or much of a crisis for people to go, you know what, this is time to move on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's not really a surprise.
No, I'm with you with that. I mean, it's quite a lot of changes, and then the sort of macroeconomical things and stuff coming from the US is not much helping. Justin, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the show, chatting to me. Love the chat. I will put your website, etc. in the show notes. But if you want to quickly give a shout out to where you are on Instagram and YouTube, so just the names.
Yeah, of course. So that's Domino, as we already mentioned. You probably know how to spell that, regardless of what language you speak as your mother tongue. DOMINO, dominoclamps.com is the website, and there you'll be able to see kind of an explanation of how everything works and a list of all our accessories, and you can click on the link for all of the information, and it's a fantastic resource that we've been working on for a very long time. Pretty much type in whatever you want there, it'll give you more information about how to do it. And then all of our socials are just /Domino Clamps, Facebook, Instagram. We're no longer on X or Twitter, but and YouTube as well. So all of those handles are just /Domino Clamps. And as I say, yeah, there's a wealth of information and resources there for anybody to find out more. And but yeah, you can also email us or give us a call as well. you've got any specific questions. But yeah, thanks very much for having us. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Pleasure, my friend. Really, really good. As I said, I put it in the show notes that's how I found you, and there's some tips and tricks as well, and specifically in your YouTube videos. They're quite informative. I can attest to that. And yeah, Justin, thanks so much.
Great. Thanks very much, Lars, and all the best with your future projects as well. And
cheers, mate.
As well. All right, cheers. Bye.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Boxed and More, the podcast about container conversions, modular architecture, and everything in between. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might like it too. See you in the next one. Trust me, it's worth it.